Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Sophia and today I'm going to be giving you some book recommendations about one of my absolute favorite tropes slash subgenres, which is the sunshine grumpy romances. Just love the juxtaposition between having a really bubbly character next to a dark one. It just makes it really entertaining and gives lots of room for good banter. Okay, for the first one, you've probably all heard of this one, and it's the first book that you think of when you hear this trope, but we're just gonna establish my reading taste. So if you're like, I like this book, maybe you like some of my other recommendations, and that is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. So we follow Lucy and Josh, who are pushed together in a merger of their two rival publishing companies, and they're also competing for the same promotion, which is very awkward, already built in, lots of tension. The whole office loves Lucy except for Josh, and she can't figure out why. As I mentioned in my current favorite romances video, the butterflies that I had reading this were through the roof. Highly recommend you should check it out. Next, we have Vicious by L.J. Shen. This one is definitely more of a guilty pleasure read. There was some toxic masculinity, probably moral-wise not the best, but it was still really fun to go through. So we follow Vicious, that's his name. He is an aloof douchebag, and he is secretly harboring feelings for the help's daughter, Amelia, and basically tries to make her life miserable and run her out of town. And then flash forward 10 years, she somehow, I think, ends up working for him again, and there's just some, like, okay, it's guilty pleasure, but there's just some good possessiveness in there, like, not in a psycho way, but in, like, a kind of romantic way. I know it sounds bad, but it's good, I promise, check it out. Perhaps one of my favorite historical romances of all time, and that is Storm and Silence by Robert Thayer. We follow Lily, who is a suffragette, and she's living with her aunt, uncle, and sisters, but she wants economic independence and overall more rights for women. So she gets a job as a secretary with one of the most powerful men in London, who thinks that she's a man. He soon quickly discovers that she is not a man, and it is their adventures as he has some dealings that are not quite on the books. Lily was absolutely hilarious, and her commentary on Mr. Ambrose, who's her employer, he's very stoic, and she kind of makes fun of him in her head, so just, and like their little back and forths together were really fun to read, and you could really feel the chemistry. I have more thoughts on that in my March wrap-up if you want to check it out. If you're looking for a really nice, lighthearted, easy read, I would say The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren would be a really great option. Not gonna lie, I read this a little while back, but what I remember is Olive and Amy are twins, and Amy is getting married, but at the wedding, everybody eats some bad seafood besides Olive and the best man, so Amy and her now husband can't go on their honeymoon, and they got these weird tickets where they couldn't exchange them, they couldn't get refunds for them, so Olive and her arch nemesis, the best man, Ethan, end up having to pretend to be newlyweds and go off and have their little vacation, and their lie kind of gets bigger and bigger as they're on this trip. And Ethan initially is really cold and standoffish, and you're like, this is really your hero? Like, I don't think I can like him, but as he warms up to Olive, he becomes a really nice guy. And it was really fun, and it was really funny, and I was chuckling out loud to it. Okay, now we're gonna switch it up where the girl is the grumpy one and the guy is sunshine, and that is Daisies and Devotion by Josie S. Kilpack. This one was another historical romance where Timothy, so he basically makes a casual deal with Marianne, and it's like, I don't have a lot of money, you have a lot of money, you're getting to be kind of older, and you should probably get married. I think we would make a great match, and I could see us falling in love. And she's like, yeah, sounds great. She likes him, they like each other, whatever. Then he comes into a bit of money and is like, well, Marianne, you know, I think we should call off our deal because I want to find a woman that meets my standards of being blonde-haired and blue-eyed and can paint and can speak this many languages and has these different skills. And she's kind of hurt by that, but they end up deciding to still be friends, and they're like, okay, we're cool. Let's find each other somebody that we could both marry. And I loved this because you saw Marianne become more confident throughout the story in herself and her own merits, and you saw Timothy realize that his standards were unrealistic, and that the woman that did meet his standards, you know, as a person, he didn't really connect with her, and he saw that he was being really shallow and was really rude to Marianne, and so he grew as a person as well. And with the whole setting each other up, there was just lots of good angst. Okay, this next one is kind of obvious. She's one of my favorite authors of all time, and that's Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Her writing is beautiful. Mr. Darcy, OG bad boy. Enough said. Just read it if you haven't read Pride and Prejudice yet. Finally, we have The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I also mentioned this one in my March wrap-up, so I guess you should really watch that video. But a little synopsis. We follow Vanessa, who is the personal assistant to a huge football star named Aiden, and he treats her really badly. So she quits. She's like, nah, I'm out of here. And then he comes crawling back and is like, hey, can you pretend to marry me or can you like actually marry me for 5 years so that I can stay in this country? And she's like, no. But then he's like, well, I'll pay you a lot of money. And then she's like, okay. And then we just have this really great slow burn. It's very slow burn, but it's good, and there's plot for the whole thing. So I was intrigued the whole story. I just really liked how these characters fell in love based on personality. And Aiden grew because initially he was kind of scummy, but by the end he realized the error in his ways. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've checked any of these books out, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!